The Chaser Report is recorded on Gadigal land.
Striving for mediocrity in a world of excellence. This is The Chaser Report.
Hello and welcome to The Chaser Report with Dom and Charles. And today, Dom, we have a mortal enemy in our midst.
I cannot believe you invited an Englishman aboard the podcast. It's Henry Naylor, live from the UK. Hello, Henry.
Hello, boys. How are you?
Good. More importantly, how's the weather?
It is disgusting. It's throwing it down with rain. It looks, it is in London, but apparently the whole of Britain is going to be under some sort of biblical deluge for the next 5 days. So I think this is looking like a draw, unfortunately. Either that or it's going to be very sneaky of us because we'll have arranged sort of seeming conditions. So Jimmy Anderson, octogenarian bowler. So that should be quite good.
Now, as we record this, Australia has just lost the toss again and is going into bat. More in a moment. So it's poised. You're saying you're very tense, Henry. Is that because you accept that an Australian victory is almost inevitable in this series? We've already won the women's.
I have to say, your team is very good. I tell you what, but I think this is...
Sorry. Can I just interrupt you there, Henry? We just should introduce Henry a little bit more. You came once with the Barmy Army. For you to admit any faults with the English side, or even worse, like success by the Australian side, is a massive thing.
That's absolutely huge. It's the heart and soul of all things Barmy.
Yeah, it's sort of like I kind of feel like, is this some sort of post-Brexit depression or something like that? Like something has happened. Are you all right?
Well, I can't argue with the fact that you are world test champions. I mean, I know if we're playing the game of who's the better side, I can't win if you play that card. And also actually the Barmy Army, in fairness, they know deep down they're a bit shit. Yeah. We come out to Australia every winter, every sort of 4 years rather, to see us getting trounced 5-0. Or last time we actually celebrated because we got a fluky draw in one of the games. So I think sort of there's something now. I mean, I think there's something quite revealing about the way the two countries follow sport, because I think a lot of Barmy Army fans are football fans, and I think sort of if you are a football fan in the UK, you're used to losing because there's only 2 or 3 teams that win all the trophies, and if you support one of the other 18 clubs, you're just turning up just for entertainment. And I think that happens with cricket. We turn up knowing we're going to lose, but what we do well is we amuse ourselves when things are going badly by inventing silly songs. And I think, to be honest, in the world of sport, we're pretty rubbish at the UK, but what we're good at is singing songs about, let's say, how porky the lead spin bowler or the captain is of Australia.
Yes.
We always win at.
That's true.
But the thing is, it has been a fascinating competition.
It's been so good. It's been such a good series.
So close the whole way through. I would grudgingly admit that the English side has gone toe-to-toe with the Australians the whole way through.
Well, and the weird thing is, we are playing like Australia do. Normally, England are sort of like quite defensive and sort of like going, they're going to get us out any ball. And you guys just come over and smack us all over the place. And the thing I find really extraordinary as well is a player like Scott Boland, who pre-Bazball absolutely was running rings around England, but just by their sheer aggression, he's kind of thrown him off.
Bazball has been absolutely brilliant. It's because England had the humility to put an Antipodean in charge, Brendan McCullum of New Zealand, and A, you're supposed to be fun, and B, you can play aggressively. I mean, what a revelation. And isn't Ben Stokes part Kiwi as well?
But yeah, it's not like Kevin Peterson. When Kevin Peterson played for England, he'd be like, my name is Kevin Peterson, and I'm very English. But at least with Ben Stokes, he does sound like, I am a bit of a fucking Geordie, you know.
Yes, he moved over as a kid. He's part Maori, I believe. But no, look, he's been incredible. I mean, single-handedly saved them over and over again. It's been fantastic. I was hoping it wouldn't be a whitewash because it is boring. The last few home summers where Australia's just won everything have been incredibly dull. India's managed to beat us. But other than that, it's awful. We want to have the contest. And I think above all, we want to have the delicious moments where we play hard and the whole of England hates us and gets angry. That to me is what it's all about. That's as good as it gets. Frankly, what happened with Johnny Burns?
I do. Well, do you know, that happened, didn't it, at Lords with the old Carey run-out nonsense? Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It was legal, but it was legal in the same way that taking your sheep over Westminster Bridge is legal. You can do it, but nobody's done it since the 1200s.
Well, I think Alex Carey, as part of the victory procession that we should have in London this time, should take a sheep across the bridge at Westminster. I think the whole of London would love to see it, and he should definitely do it. Yeah, look, it might not have been in the spirit of the game, but it's in the laws of the game. Who writes the laws of the game? The MCC from Lords. So, you know, it's not as though...
I'll tell you what, though, it's one of those things, isn't it, Dom? Do you not think that sort of you can... I reckon all players cheat to some degree.
Totally.
But if you get caught... I mean, I'm not saying that was a cheat. It was legal. But, you know, the thing that kind of got me about it was... I don't like those little twists of the rule. It's like man-cadding. Yeah, yes. You know what I mean. If you sort of if a player is at the sort of bowler's end and they're sort of backing up too far, the bowler can, instead of delivering the ball, affect a run out. It's legal, but I hate it.
That's a degree worse than man-cat. I mean, hasn't Bairstow tried to do the same things on multiple occasions and just missed?
Yeah. This is what you're actually complaining about.
The problem is that he missed.
The Australians are too accurate in their stumping.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, to be honest,
and then you're right. As an English side, you wouldn't know, because the last time anyone stumped, like any British wicketkeeper stumped anyone, was the 12th century. So I completely understand. Stumping is part of the rules of cricket. You are actually allowed to do it.
I mean, sort of like I think you are allowed to do it, but it's that thing as well. The defences of it were things like everybody knows since you were 12 years old not to wander out of your ground in cricket, and you think, yes, I know that. We know that. We used to do that when we were 12 years old. Don't do it in the test match, and it's really exciting. You know, I don't know. I mean, it did create a lot of... I mean, you know, I sent you guys some of the headlines over here, and it was ridiculous. It was like the death of Princess Diana. It was like pull-out supplements.
On Alex Carey, I think, topped it worse than the BBC presenters. With an equally flimsy basis.
We all knew who Alex Carey was. That was the difference. I mean, and I feel sorry for Carey, actually. I don't think he's played well since. And you know, what we won't admit as Englishmen is what a boost it gave to us. We're all saying, oh, what a disadvantage it was. But Stokes had played terribly for about 2 years. And from that point on, he suddenly went, right, you know, he kind of got a bit red-faced and angry and sort of like, I reckon Bairstow will come good at some point. Bairstow is the sort of player that is just, he's just a grumpy old shit. He really is. And if you get him annoyed, he plays really well. So
I'll take your word for it.
I think the case. We're saying,
in what way? Like
we're talking
at cricket, right? He's going to be good at cricket. Okay,
well, wait and see. Maybe this is the test. Maybe this is the Bairstow test. To get a ton in both innings and accurately perform a stumping or a run out or a catch. But it's very poised. I'm very glad England won the third test, because we'd be talking about a dead rubber at this point, which would be very boring. As much as it is enjoyable for us still to win 5-0.
You know what? I totally agree. And I think Australian cricket needs a close series at home. Australia are just so good that, I mean, you're right about the India series. That was a one-off. No one's beaten Australia really for years, not since the Great West Indies. Yeah. And I think as a result, it makes a dull cricket. You know, and I think tests don't seem to be as well attended in Australia as certainly as the UK. I think, you know, one dayers definitely. But I think I think what should happen in cricket is, if you're a visiting side, we should do away with the toss. As a visiting side, you should choose what you can do, and then we'll get away with this.
Gentlemanly.
Well, do you know what I mean? Because I think sort of I don't like. I mean, England do it when Australia comes there. We go right. Stick him up at let's stick him up at Headingley. It swings around there. Australia traditionally don't play very well on a swinging pitch.
Yeah,
and it happens when we come to Brisbane. You know, we always lose the first test. We're always 1-0 down before the series has started.
Yeah.
And I think it makes for a dull contest. I think sort of we should do away with the toss, let the visiting side choose, and then I think we'll get a lot closer games across the world. It's the same.
As an Australian,
lose the toss in India, you lose the game.
It sounds sporting. It sounds a bit noble.
Yeah.
And the interest of a fair contest. I don't think you can sell it to Australians.
Is
but
there a way?
In principle, it's good.
Like, I like the idea in principle. Is there a way we could rig it? Though? Like, is there a way that you could sort of man-cad for example, what we would do in Australia is we would excise the immigration zone from Australia, which I think we've already done, actually.
Yeah.
And so we would be the visiting side.
Oh, we would be the visiting side. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Well, because England did invade us. Like, essentially, that they are, like, who's the head of state? It's the fucking King of England. So,
Still.
you know.
We invaded everybody.
In many ways. Well, I mean, this is the thing why the Ashes are so enjoyable, I think. To this day, it's absolutely, and we saw this in the long room more than anywhere else, particularly when Australia had the temerity to select a Muslim player born in Pakistan, Muslim Khawaja. It's so much still about the upstarts who absolutely delight in beating the colonising / mother country, and England not quite being comfortable with the notion of Australia still winning. I mean, the Ashes itself, as I was saying the other day on the podcast, it's basically the notion of burning the bales is a monument to English petulance at Australia being good, having been an offshoot of England. You know, you could argue that all the victories are still the King's. You know, in a sense, the King never loses at Ashes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure we'll get rid of the King before you do. Actually, I think but there's something I think quite nice about the Carey row as well, in that it was sort of like in days of yore, England being what it was, we expelled people for stealing a loaf of bread, which seems pretty harsh.
Yes.
To be able to turn around and go, we've got one over you, and we did it legally, it's quite fun, isn't it?
That's true. That's true. Within your laws. Within your laws.
Within your laws.
Take that.
How was it perceived in Australia, that whole Carey row? Was that a big deal, or was it? Because it was ridiculous.
Absolutely 100%. If you'd taken it to a jury, everyone would have said Australia did the correct thing. There is no issue at all.
I think a few people were like, look, obviously it's not the greatest thing in terms of being sporting, but the guy's a wicket keeper. It's an Ashes.
Yes.
Run him out.
But also, can I just say, like, the coverage also here, I think, was a little bit more scientific than the tabloids that you sent me, Henry. Because it was things like they'd realised that Johnny Bairstow was constantly walking out of his crease after each ball, right? And so Steve Smith had wandered over to Alex Carey a few balls before and said, hey, have you noticed this, right? And
the de facto captain of the team, let's be honest.
Yes,
Smith, and the tactical brain.
And then it happened. Alex Carey saw it. It was within 0.74 of a second that he received the ball, that he threw it back. So it wasn't like...
Oh, no.
It wasn't like, it was over and, everyone was wandering around and suddenly it was out. It was, like, really fucking quick. Like, he should have been in his crease. And fuck him.
I love the footage of Bairstow stumping someone who just slightly lifts his foot, like he's in his crease. He lifts his foot off the ground for a second, and he's like, boom, got you. So it is calming. But no, I think we do have tabloids, we do have Murdoch media. It's not as frenetic, I don't think, as it gets in the UK. I think it's a whole other level, and I'm going to boast of this again. I've already done it on the podcast. My greatest achievement, I think, in my life is getting blocked on Twitter by Piers Morgan over this. Piers who was saying, every Australian knows it's wrong. And I was like, yeah, let's take ethical advice from this guy, and put a link to all of his stuff as editor of The Sun, where he clearly knew about phone hacking. I got blocked.
I'll tell you, everybody in England will support you for that as well. I mean, that's the way of bringing the nations together.
The Chaser Report. News you can't trust.
It certainly did make it much sweeter, Piers Morgan droning on and on about it. Like
That's true.
They did make everyone in Australia just go, oh, right, it was the right decision.
I mean, Atherton on the commentary was, Mike Atherton, very sensible fellow, was like, no, well within their rights. Bairstow's an idiot.
Yes.
I think that's Hussein agreed as well. Just looking at the actual footage in the context of the game, but then it became a question of national pride, and that's a tough issue for England recently, right?
And this is where I wanted to go with this conversation, which is Nick Bryant, friend of the show, did this wonderful piece for The Guardian the day after that incident, sort of talking about how BrexitBall itself is very much this sort of sound and fury game that isn't really that effective. And it's he called it BrexitBall. Like, he had this idea that, actually, at the end of the day, it's this sort of brash thing that's supposed to be the saviour of Britain, but they keep losing. But they sort of they lost, but they didn't lose because we'll just shift reality and pretend that we won because BrexitBall was great and it was a great contest, but we actually lost. But don't worry about that because it's like Brexit. Is that fair? Like you must be in a pile of shit. Like, Brexit's a fucking nightmare, isn't it?
Oh, it's ridiculous. I mean, sort of, it's just choosing to be irrelevant. I mean, it's just sort of like, as part of the European Union, you're one of the biggest economic blocs in the world, and we just turned our back on it and just sort of like gone, no, we can do it on our own. Look, we've got a great deal with Tuvalu. We can trade fish with Tuvalu, and stuff like that. And it's disastrous. And one of the things that I've noticed here, certainly, there was big. You go to the supermarkets and the shops, the shelves aren't as full, and that's all to do with sort of like import duties and inflation's bad in this country. And but I don't. What I don't understand is why one of the political parties over here, one of the major ones, isn't going. We will come. We will go back to the European Union, because I think it was so wrong. It was such a marginal decision. It's only about 2% in it. And the Scottish referendum, you had to have a 60-40 split to change the constitution. But with Brexit, it was 50-50. And it had such a major change. Why didn't it? It was so disruptive. Why wasn't why didn't it have to be a bigger majority rather than
also having a lot of the people who voted for it now died? The old people voted for it, and obviously they were the most affected by it because the economy tanked and no one could afford healthcare or whatever. So kind of. I wonder if they did the poll again, where it would go.
Well, but isn't it enormously unpopular now? Like, isn't it the case that if they held a referendum tomorrow, there is no chance that Brexit would happen?
I think that's probably right. And I think it will be a very popular political move. I mean, if Labour wanted to guarantee getting it in the next election, I think they should just do that. I think sort of because they would steal, I think, a lot of... Because the Tory party was kind of split 50-50 on sort of Brexit. They would steal a lot of
Cameron
Tory
was
votes.
wasn't he?
Cameron
held the referendum to shut it up.
But Cameron was very arrogant because, like, what had happened before, Cameron, there was a big debate on whether we should. God, this is getting quite serious. It's better when we're talking about sheep going over Westminster Bridge, isn't it? But I'll tell you this one quickly. The thing about Cameron was he'd won a referendum which everybody thought was going to lose over proportional representation.
Right.
There was a big majority in favour of going to proportional representation, and he won that. And there was another one. The Scottish referendum.
Yes,
it looked like they were going to lose that, but he got his way there. And I think he thought, it'll happen with Europe as well. And they didn't campaign properly. And I think it's quite murky. There's a lot of talk about Russian bots and how the Democratic...
Boris, which is sort of like a Russian bot. just internalising. His name's Boris Stevens, though.
Basically lied. And he lied over sort of like, had a campaign bus saying if we move out of Brexit, we'll spend an extra 15 billion on hospitals. And it was just a lie. And, given that, given the public was deceived, I think we should be able to have another vote. I mean, the thing that gets me about Brexit is we're allowed to change our mind every 5 years for a general election. But on this issue, we've had this one vote and we're not allowed to change our minds. I mean, I think sort of like people's perceptions have changed and we should be allowed to vote again on that issue. But I don't know. It's just such a hot potato. I don't think people go near it.
Well, you'll be depressed to find out that the British Labour Party is looking towards the Anthony Albanese government for tips on how to win the next.
Are they really? I was just thinking it was very Albo-esque. Don't avoid fights you don't want to have. Don't be controversial.
Yes. Oh no.
Don't give the Tories anything to campaign on, and it'll presumably win the election. And then guarantee that nothing happens.
It's no victory at all. You basically get Conservative light. So that's what Keir Starmer is going to roll out.
We do that in the Ashes. Could England actually win again if we didn't get involved with the bowlers? We didn't engage at all. We just sat there playing nice little forward defensives, and would we automatically win without playing any shots?
Well, this is the thing. I actually I think baseball is really interesting, right? Because, you're controlling the momentum of the game, right? And that is a very New Zealand thing to think about, right? Like, I remember when Australia was completely predominant during the Steve Waugh era, the one team that started tripping them up towards the end was New Zealand. Out of all the test nations, New Zealand, because they approached Australia with the idea of we'll just completely play a different pace of game. And they played the most boring cricket. They slowed everything down. And Australia spent several tests losing before they got the hang of how to deal with it. And I think what baseball is about is New Zealanders going, okay, how do we win against Australia and the rest of the world? Like, we'll surprise them, right? But the problem is an innovation around momentum only lasts while it's still a surprise.
Yeah.
But your fucking British tabloids have been going on about baseball every day for the last 6 months. It's not a surprise anymore. So, Australia turns up and they go, okay, well, we presume that they're going to play baseball. And there's been whole sessions in the first two tests where you go, Cummins, I don't think is necessarily the greatest tactician on earth, but he could sort of almost depend on a couple of British, batsmen giving away their wickets.
Being out slugging,
because, they'll play the fast game. Yeah, great. We'll just wait around and then catch it in the outfield.
But I think the whole buzzball thing should be seen in the context of how dominant Australia have been. I mean, we've lost 9 tests in the last two series out in Australia, and what we were doing wasn't working. And actually, the one thing that the English side has had is a lot of good one-day players. And I honestly don't think Bazball would exist if we didn't have that. I think they picked the team around what we have. We haven't got anyone to stay in. And I think it's also about the fact, I think they've said to themselves, look, we're not going to last more than 80 overs against this Australian bowling attack. They're just too good. So we might as well slog out. There's always going to be a ball that's got our name on it. So we might as well bat our 80 overs and get 350 rather than bat our 80 overs and get all out for 250. And I think I'm sure there's an element of that in it.
That's definitely true. And the thing is, though, if they played a bit more of the conditions, I mean, it's always hard to speculate, but I read a pretty compelling article, I think, in The Guardian, saying the problem with baseball is that it means your bowlers are exhausted, for instance, because your innings, okay, you get a lot of runs, but it's a very short innings, they don't get to rest. It gives the other side a lot more time in the game. I mean, as when Khawaja was on the field for basically the entirety of the first test, except for about 2 overs or something like that. And because there was time for him to play himself in and then get a big score anyway. It just feels as though England have a good trick and it works really, really well, but they play it whether it's a good idea in the moment or not. And so great to score the runs quickly and apply a lot of pressure. But if it means that there's more time for Australia to sort of plot it out, then you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot, particularly when at several points in the series, the English bowlers really have run out of puff. after a very long innings and coming into a second innings and I think in the second test, not being able to really do very much, just because they were exhausted.
That's why we arranged these convenient rain breaks.
Yes, well done.
So we get
very
a little bit of a rest. I think, but I mean, joking apart, I think that's what happened in Headingley. Sort of like a day and a half got washed out, and the bowlers got a rest that way. I think you're right. I totally don't.
Yeah, it's going to be a very
absolutely.
interesting test. I mean, we haven't made life easy for ourselves by picking David Warner. We're playing with 11 batsmen.
What does Australia think about David Warner? Does Australia like David Warner?
I think a lot of people think it's time to go, particularly when you've got, I mean, Marsh has been opening in 1 day, as I think, or Green could do it as well. It's not as though he's some sort. I mean, everyone goes, but the opening partnerships managed to get a pretty decent total, each time. That's only because one of them. They never bat well together, Khawaja anymore.
It's time to hang up the gloves and the sandpaper. And retire.
They're playing T20, buddy.
I'll tell you what, though. Well, we do, but I mean, secretly, I think he's great in that he is it's nice for opposing fans to have somebody to hate.
Yes,
if
you want an Australian to hate from Central Casting, he is that Australian. Yeah. He gives you every little bit of intense, dogged, not terribly bright. Personality.
He did an air conditioning ad out here last summer. Yes. And he speaks like this. Why LG air conditioners?
It's because he's been hit where it hurts so many times by Stuart Broad.
It's gone permanent. So what's our prediction for this test? I mean, certainly a draw with the weather does seem a little bit likely. But hey, with BrexitBall, England could score quickly.
Yes,
I can't see it. I just think I can't. We're not going to win the Ashes. We'll definitely one of these tests will either lose or draw. I think it would be great if it was a 2-2. I think it probably would be fair, actually. I think, and it would be great. It would keep the debate going between sort of those who love traditional cricket and those who love BrexitBall, because I think that's really what's at stake here. And I think that's why people did get exercised about the thing at Lords. I think there's a belief that's been pushed to the media anyway that Stokes wants to save cricket. That he wants to make cricket entertaining. And he's been seen as a saviour by a lot of English fans who put up with sort of like the root years of captaincy when we lost something like 17 tests in a row or something. I mean, at least with BrexitBall, we won 11 in a row. But you're right, the surprises. And people have been slugging off Cummings for just putting people on the boundary, saying, it's a bit boring captaincy. And you think, it works.
I mean, I think my serious wish for the series, I think I want England to win this one. And then it all goes to the 5th test at the Oval. And then at the very last moment, day 5, England have to score 1 run to win.
Yes.
Johnny Bairstow's at the crease. And he just wanders. And Alex Carey throws down his stumps. I think that would keep interest in Test cricket as high as possible. Ben Stokes would get his wish.
I think I'll sign up for that. I think that'd be great.
I don't know.
I think actually it would be fantastic for the last game. I just think it would be great though, just for it to go to the last game. Well, wouldn't it be just brilliant for cricket? I think. We've had these 3 amazing games. It's not quite 2005 yet, but there's a bit of excitement building up amongst the public. And, God bless him, Carey helped create that. That's all over the front pages and sort of like cricket, people were talking about it again. So I'm all for it. If, tell Dave Warner to get his industrial sander out and stand up for shearing the ball and all that.
It doesn't get better.
We don't have any spinners left.
That was
no point.
That's a big, Todd Murphy being dropped is a bit of a big call. But look, Australia hasn't won a series in England for a very long time. And yes, we've smashed England in every home Ashes, but I don't remember the last time a home team didn't win an Ashes. I think it's been nearly 20 years or something like that. So for all that Australia play well, England are very good in England against us. And so winning this, then fingers crossed, BrexitBall still going strong, and when England tour here next, they actually really have mastered the art and put up a big fight.
I think that I think in Australia we need Jofra Archer, and we need Ollie Stone, and we need Marwood. We need all our pace bowlers fit, and we've not had that. We've only had 1 fit in any series for about the last 5 years. if we have those guys fit, we'll do okay. But I think you pointed out what I think is the big flaw in baseball. There is no rest of the bowlers. And in Australia, you're unlikely to get the weather to help you out. So I think we could lose 4-0, 5-0 again.
Well, if Jofra Archer can come back and
bowl 3 balls.
Get our players unconscious again, I think that will probably be good for the series.
Wasn't he? He was fit. He was fit at the beginning of the season, and he bowled 3 balls, and then he got another injury.
What a 3 balls!
Yeah, they were great 3 balls. Don't get me wrong. So will you come out to Australia as part of the Barmy Army during the next Australian Ashes? Come on,
I would love to. I would love to, but I don't know. They're very funny. I mean, they're not like they're not. There's there are some hooligan elements amongst them, but some of the songs are very funny. I would love to go to Western Australia. I've never been there to watch a game, and Sydney I think is the most beautiful ground in the world. It's wonderful. Adelaide's actually very good too. So, they're great places to watch cricket.
We'll try and twist your arm and do it in person. How many years till that? Is it summer after this one?
It's 18 months away.
Yeah, it's usually 18 months away.
Yeah. So, but actually, we've got a policy on this podcast of not saying anything nice about Adelaide or Perth. So we have to take that back. Yeah.
They're the worst grounds in the world. They're awful.
But as an Englishman, you can be contrary. That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, even the British like Adelaide. How shit is that?
Just wanted to ask you guys. I mean, there seems to be a big Australia following coming to the grounds this year. They're all wearing the yellow hats in the crowd. Is that something that would tempt you? Would you guys ever sort of come out?
I'd love to, but the thing is, post-COVID, we are a nation of travellers. Everybody who can afford it is in Europe right now. It's basically. I chatted to someone who was at the Lord's Test on Monday. He'd just been like, I had a week off. I went to the Lord's Test. Wow, okay. It's just Australians love flying as far away as possible from Australia. It's part of our national condition. I've only been to one test in England. I went to a test, England versus New Zealand, as a child at the Oval. It was the first test I've ever been to. It hooked me for life. So very keen to get back there. What I really want to do is get into the long room and have a chat to some of those old blokes. And potentially get
have a fight. Yeah, stick up for Usman Khawaja. I thought that was a bit surprising. I have to say, I thought they might tut. I thought as they went past, but to sort of get into an altercation.
I mean, it's in the nicest possible way, Henry. I went to a school in London with a very large Bangladeshi population and Pakistani population in the 1980s. The notion that there's a little bit of racism against South Asians in England it's not a new observation. As much as Australia has problems in that respect as well.
Yeah.
There we are. Yeah.
But what I was going to say is I think one of the good things, and I think one of the reasons why there's been such a strong Australian contingent this year is because the British pound is so low.
Oh, thank you, Brexit.
Thank you, Brexit. We are big supporters of Brexit because your economy is...
It wasn't Russian bots at all, was it? It was Australian bots that created Brexit because of the...
We're thinking of buying the MCC. That's how...
I mean, can we take over? How strong is the dollar going to get before we can buy England? Oh, that would be a fantastic reverse takeover, wouldn't it? if we went and colonised England.
Yeah. Who would you put as the king if it was an Australian?
Me.
You
wouldn't have to change any of the coinage. It'd be King Charles still.
Julian Assange. Oh no, it's obviously Alex Carey.
Alex Carey. Yes.
And the laws of the game will say that if you don't throw the stumps down in that situation, you're banned from the next game. It's been lovely, Henry. Thank you.
It's been a treat and a joy, guys. We've got to go and watch the cricket now. It's starting any minute.
Yes, it started. We've got to go and watch the rain delay. Hurry up.
Oh, is it really?
I don't know. Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Our gear is from Rode, and we are part of the Iconoclast Network. Catch you tomorrow.